Good evening, good night, and good morning, YouTube. I'm a new face. That's why I'm making this video. My name is Anthony Connor. In the real world, I go by Lorenzo. In my gaming community, they all call me Ghost. As you can see, spelled right here. I have it spelled the way I do because I'm from New Orleans, So I had to add a little New Orleans flavor to it. I wanted to make this video because if you've read this, if you read my about section, if you read my about section, this channel is designed to create a safe space where people can unapologetically be themselves, um, be able to speak to their traumas and maybe get help with their traumas by being able to have an outlet to speak to that trauma, whether it be emotional, physical, etc., mental. Um, I also, kind of address some of the traumas that I've experienced within my life as well. We also, talk about things from sports to gaming to, um, you know, self improvement, personal development, etc. Anything that we can do to help touch and impact as many lives as possible to uh, be more kind, I guess you would say, or be more loving towards each other because the world's so angry today. I feel like that's important. And if we can impact even one life or millions of lives, no matter the number, having made that impact will definitely make this channel a success. And so obviously we can't do that without you all's help. A little bit about myself. As I said before, I'm from New Orleans, I didn't grow up in the project, so to speak. I do feel like the whole city of New Orleans is a hood. Uh, but we didn't grow up like with a silver spoon, and we didn't grow up, in the projects either. But I do feel like we all were exposed to the same um, traps of the streets, traps of distractions, anything that could have happened. But myself, I was primarily a pretty good kid, I would say, I guess. Um, Made good grades in school. Uh, I was part of a youth group, youth leader, up until 2006 when Hurricane Katrina hit. I think that was the entry of my mental trauma that I wasn't aware of that I was going through, and I believe that moment shaped me up until this point. Um, how was that traumatic? Obviously, you're being displaced from your home on senior year. Literally had one day of school, and we were like, "Man, we about to leave. We about to be on vacation. Vacation. We're about to be able to leave and be off from school." And then you look up one day, you're in a whole nother city. You in the back of a classroom. You don't know nobody that's in the class. You don't know nobody at the school. Um, it was definitely life changing, I would say. But I didn't realize how impactful that one year was. Um, and the entry of the trauma was not being able to, obviously see my friends, get to speak with, go to see them easily, like say, hey, let's go, let's meet up at the mall, the plaza, let's go to the movies. Oh, we coming over? None of that. And during that process or that time, my mom and dad had to work 7 on, 7 off. My brothers were already in college, so everybody gone. It was just me. But they would have to work 7 on, 7 off, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little less. But it was my first experience of, I guess, being alone. Maybe I shouldn't have been alone at the time because your mind starts to wander. Idle mind is a devil playground, as they say. Um, and I think the start of it was obviously the Katrina storm, but the storm that came after was where it kind of got crazy. So I remember my mom was on the phone one night, and I hear her say, my dad passed, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, what? What do you mean your dad passed? That's Papa. You mean Papa died? She's like, yeah, he passed away. Then a month later, going into my freshman year in Auburn University, um, my my grandmother passed at that time as well. So there's a lot kind of transitioning from obviously not having my home to now my grandparents are gone. I think one of my friends, um, well, having to go to from my grandparents passing away a month apart. One of my friends ended up, getting killed in a car crash. And it's just a lot of. I think my great grandmother also passed away later in my second semester at Auburn University. Yeah, second semester she passed away as well. And in my head, I'm like, man, death is so close to me. Like, am I next? And so I started to think about a lot of things, man. And anyone would tell you that my two biggest goals was always to play in the NFL and play the game for a living. Obviously, I'm not in the NFL. That didn't happen, which also kind of plays a factor in this as well, because during that time, one of my goals obviously was to become a football player, etc. And words like, it's easier for you to become a doctor, it's easier you can become a lawyer, etc., than to make it to the NFL. Or if I may ask my parents, sometimes, hey, can we I want to go to football school. Even going into high school before Katrina, I wanted to play football. I always wanted to play football. It was my priority, number one priority in my head was to play football. But they're all saying like, get your education, get your education. Um, football is it's a long shot for you to make it in the league, la la la. And to a kid, that's like saying you don't believe in me. So any chance I got, I would play football. I would play football, practice. I would throw the ball up in the room and hold my arms out and catch it, like just focusing on putting myself in that space to prepare for obviously to play football. Um, the first time I ever got a chance at playing was at Auburn High School after Hurricane Katrina hit. Um, got to Auburn University. I eventually was able to try out for the football team, but unfortunately by that time I'm already mentally in a rut because again, my mom, my dad, they're not they're not really around that last year like they were, obviously my previous life in New Orleans, and I felt this sense of aloneness, like I'm not being heard or understood, uh, because they would say things like, um, well, I felt like I wasn't being heard or understood because I remember going to my parents and saying, "Hey, I think I need a shrink because I'm not doing well in school and I can't seem to focus. I keep thinking about going home. I keep thinking about I keep missing my my grandmother, my grandfather, my friends at home, uh, and I guess you can only teach what you know, so to speak, in the moment. Um, but of course, obviously being in college, it's like, oh, you're going out too much, you're partying, etc. You guys ain't about it in Auburn. I didn't really party like that. Like I was not a partier for real. They sometimes had to drag me out to go party, and so I get into Auburn University. My grades are starting off good. Just to kind of go back to the beginning of that situation or that space. I'm sorry, of that time frame to go back to the beginning of that time frame. Um, so I started Auburn University. My grandfather had already passed, so I go through the first maybe the first set of exams, maybe doing fine. Auburn's cool, my grades, school's easy. And when my grandmother hit, that's when things started to change because I didn't have anyone to, I guess, help me navigate those feelings of like death on top of not being comfortable to speak to my parents and tell them like, hey, I feel like you don't really believe in me. I'm not really getting the support I need in regards to being an athlete. Um, and so my GPA was in the rut. Like I graduated high school, I think with a 3.8 or something like that. I forget. But I think by the time I got to Auburn University and a few semesters in, I went from starting out with like a 3.8, 4.0 GPA because I believe I passed pretty much every test that I had. And then when I got into that mental rut, that was when things started to really shift for me in a negative space. And man, my on paper I was dumb. I had like a 1.9 GPA. It's crazy to say that, but I had a 1.9 GPA. I eventually pulled up my grades, but I think I didn't have an outlet though to really help navigate my feelings and like what was transpiring in my brain. I didn't feel like I was good enough for anything. I felt like everyone was succeeding except for me. I didn't feel like uh, I had any meaning to my life. There was one point where I started to, begin to think about death and what it would be like to just not wake up the next morning. And I'm like, hey, you know, it would, if I didn't wake up tomorrow, I wouldn't be mad. I mean, who would miss me? That's how I feel, because it felt like no one really cared. And I remember before my Auburn University football tryout, um, my my cousin was getting married, I believe, and we went on this ferry in New Orleans, and he asked me something about football. He's like, "Man, all these years you've been wanting to play football, you finally about to get your opportunity." When I tried out for Auburn, I knew I wasn't going to make the team because my GPA wasn't there. I remember the first drill we had. I dropped my first pass, and my brother Brandon is sitting outside the fence, like on the phone with my mom, like, "Ma, he out here, he trying, like, he's there, he's there." And I dropped my first pass, and I remember my mom was after later on. My mom was like, "Oh," Brandon was like, "Oh my, you dropped his first pass." And after I dropped the first pass, that was my nerves. And then thereafter, I caught every single pass. Boom, boom, boom. I was catching everything, and I was like, "Oh, this is so easy, man. This is my place of peace right here. I get to do what I want to do." But I knew I wouldn't make the team though. But it felt really good to do that. So again, I'm still working at. I go to Auburn and I say, "Hey, I'm struggling in school, and here's why." I bought all the obituaries to Auburn, and I was like, "Hey, man, is there a way that I can drop all my negative grades and just keep my positive grades and just retake all the courses?" And she's like, "They're like, oh, we are willing to help you. You'd have to start school all over again." I'm like, "Okay, well, is there a way to get refunded for the for the previous semesters, or a way to get financial assistance or whatever?" Because my dad's paying cash for my school, and they're like, "No, you have to start from scratch all over again." So then that happens. So I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm not doing that." So then I end up moving back to New Orleans, um, uh, and I moved back to New Orleans for a little bit. Come back to Auburn, and school still's not going the way I planned. And I remember this one day, my mom, I'm with my girlfriend actually at the time, and my mom pops up out of nowhere, bro. She had just slept over and everything. My mom pops, and we're talking about life, we're talking about everything, and then my mom pops up out of nowhere, bro. And I walk up to the door, and I'm like, "Oh shh!" So I run back to the room, and I said, "Yo, you better not say a word. You better be quiet as a church mouse. Don't If you gotta pee, you pee on yourself. Don't If you got a cough, you better smother yourself in the pillow or something. My mama better not know you here." So so then this is one of the I think this is when my life began to really change for the better, I guess. Like when I started trying, I should say. I remember I let her in, right? I let my mom in, and I could feel myself getting in that moment again. I let my mom in, and I'm like, "Ma, what's up?" So she sits me down at the table, and she immediately starts apologizing. So she's like, "I'm sorry that me and Dad left you for a year, and we were in and out, because of Hurricane Katrina, and I'm sorry that we weren't there for you when you needed us the most, to help you through your situations and help you through, XYZ." And she just kept apologizing, and it made me feel like, damn, I'm hurting one of the most important persons in my life. And I really felt really down. And then, not because she was apologizing, but it was because what I was doing or not doing was harming, or in my head, harming her emotionally. And, um, and I never wanted to obviously make my mom ever feel that way, because growing up in our household, we had a lot of, arguments and fights and stuff like that, that I would see with my parents and, my brother and my parents. And, that got old in my head. I'm like, I don't want to be that person that is emotionally, hurting people, or emotionally making my, loved ones feel bad. Um, so I always want to, do something that can validate, where they'd be proud of me. And in that moment, it felt like I wasn't proud. Like, they didn't feel any proudness of me, I guess you would say, because I was failing school. Um, and, rightfully so, I guess. And that night, I ended up, my girlfriend went home at the time, and that night, I just laid in bed and I cried. I had put God on the shelf already. There was no God. I was like, man, if God turned my back on me with Katrina and took me away from my home, right, on my most important year of my young life at the time, like, why would anybody else matter? I mean, why would I matter to anybody else? If God could turn my back if God can turn His back on me, then would why should I expect anything else from anyone else? Um, or should I say, if God can turn His back on me, why would I not? Why would I expect my parents to believe in me if the Most High doesn't believe in me? And that's just what I was feeling at the time. So back, going back forward to where my mom, had that conversation that night. I remember I laid in bed, man, and I was like in a pool of tears, and I'm just crying, like, God, I'm sorry I put you on the shelf, but if you can please just help me get through this rut, I promise I won't ever put you back on the shelf. So that test came back real quick. So I moved back to New Orleans, and because I'm on academic probation anyway, so I moved back to New Orleans. I get a job, um, and well, no, I didn't have a job actually, not yet. I didn't have a job yet. I moved back to New Orleans. I had no job. I'm applying to jobs, and I'm sleeping between my brother's couch and his girlfriend at the time, now wife. I'm sleeping on their couch, and I would go home back at my home in the east, and I would sleep in the gutted out house that we have. So there's no room, no walls in the house, except for, I think, the kitchen, and I think it was the kitchen and my room, my old room in the back. And I think the bathroom still had some walls, but everything else was just like, wood and sheetrock or whatever, that we all tore down to like clean up the mold and stuff like that. Um, so so that happened, um, and then um, my brother in Florida asked me to. He says, "Hey man, I think you should move to, come out here to Florida. You need to get under somebody that can help you get back on your feet." I'm like, man, I'm good. I'm good where I'm at. I don't need anyone. I'll figure it out. Trying to be macho, be a man. So eventually he convinces me to come. So I was like, well, I'll come if I get a job interview. I get the job interview for Macy's on the Millennium Mall, and then I fly out and say, go to like 3 interviews. They didn't hire me at the time, and this is what I mean by like the test from God came quick. They didn't hire me, and I had already applied to Valencia College, where they accepted me, and orientation comes. Go through orientation. Obviously, I just didn't get accepted at the job, so I'm like, man, I'm about to go back to New Orleans. This is stupid. Ain't nothing working here. So I go through orientation, and I'm thinking that everything's copacetic. We're getting ready to start school. I'm graduate, get my degree, get back on track. Guys holding up his end of the bargain. I'm holding up my end of the bargain. And right before school starts, Valencia College tells me, hey, we can't approve you for any like financial assistance because your parents make too much money. And I'm like, and I lose it a little bit on the lady. I'm like, lady, my parents don't give me shit. I'm like, they give me like $20 here and there because I don't have a job and I'm trying to figure out life, and this is the only way I got. So, I'm like, shit, they don't give me nothing because my parents are the type of parents where if they would give you something if you're trying, put it that way. In their eyes, if probably didn't feel like I was trying and I was just like, like throwing my life away type thing. And I can understand that because obviously we didn't have a conversation about what was going through my head. So I'm like, lady, what am I supposed to do? I just turned down a job at Sprint that was offered to me because I wanted to go to school and finish school. So she's like, oh, we don't have, you can try for grants, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, yeah, school starts like tomorrow. That didn't work out. So I called the lady back for Sprint and said, hey, can I accept that job I just declined? And so she's like, yeah, you can accept it. We'll start you, blah, 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 date. So I start the job at Sprint. I meet a woman and we start dating. And again, this is still part of the test, man. We start dating. I feel like I'm making, decent money. I feel like things are looking up. Fast forward to about 2012, 2013. Me and her get into a verbal altercation, and we get into a verbal altercation, and everything gets like really heated. And but we never like swung on each other or fought each other or anything like that. But I remember, I don't know who called who, but according to her cousin, she called the police and said that I was choking her or whatever. And I didn't know that happened or that was reported until I think it was close to Thanksgiving at the time. And this is like years after, Katrina. We finally, like, the family's getting ready to all meet up at my mom and dad's place in Alabama. And we're about to have a family Thanksgiving, right? We get to the family Thanksgiving. I pack my bags. The day before I'm getting ready to leave, I get a knock at the door. Boom, 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 boom. I'm like, damn, boy, it's like the police at the door. And it's just me at home. And so I look down the stairs. I'm like, man, the police is at the door. I'm like, I don't know what they're here for. I'm just not going to answer it because I don't know what they're here for. So they keep going, boom, 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 boom. So I guess they kept knocking because my car was still outside. My car was outside. So I go down. I'm like, how can I help you? And they're like, yeah, we're looking for Anthony Conner. Is that you? Nope. I'm like, nope. You're not looking for me. I don't know what you would be looking for me for. So it's like, yeah, we got a warrant out for your arrest for domestic violence. I was like, excuse me? I even called her that day. I was like, you called the police on me and said I choked you? I didn't even touch you. I was like, I didn't do nothing. I said, bro, I what do you mean? I didn't do anything. I'm like, what are you talking about? So man, they arrest me and I, of course, my brain, for some reason, always have these like I always end up like joking in the worst moments possible. So in my head, I'm like, bro, one of my biggest fears is about to happen, which is being arrested, and my nose itches and I can't scratch it. That's exactly what happened. So I'm like, I'm like, I'm trying to scratch my nose. My nose is itching, but so boom, I spend like a day and a half in jail. And throughout that time in jail, I can feel myself going back into this dark space, this dark, dark space. And in my head, I'm like, man, I hate this person. I hate that person for not believing me. I hate this person for this and that and this and that. Like, I could feel myself becoming so dark. I hated the person that put me there because I'm like, if a person in my head at the time, I'm like, if a person that tells me that they love me can put me here, like, I don't even want love. Like, forget love. Like, what is the point of love if it's gonna put me here? So the funny thing about it, looking back, they give you like five name. They give you names you can pull out of. I mean, they give you your phone and you can pull names out of your phone. Um, and uh, you can pull names out of your phone. So I get my five names, and you get your phone call. Unfortunately, I don't know if the long distance was down, but the worst feeling in the world is calling someone and you can hear them, but they can't hear you, and you like, hello, you don't hear me. I'm like, you don't hear me. I'm trying to talk to you. You don't hear me. And man, and my boy is like, Junior, Junior. And I'm like, bro, you do not hear me. He couldn't hear me. So the only person I could call was the person that put me there. So I called her. I said, listen, I need you to call my boy. Tell him my bank card is on the table. Come bail me out. So again, I spent like a day and a half or whatever in there. Longest day and a half ever for like 10 years. I don't know how people could commit crimes because, boy, a day and a half in there was like forever. You like the walls was closing in crazy. Well, hold on. I gotta say this part. So while in there, there's like a court system inside the jail, and they'll bring you in there. And the lady to the lawyer, the little BS lawyer that they give you is like, oh, the lady you told, the lady you said that, put you there. Um, uh, she says she can't come because she has to work. And I was like, what the flip? She gotta work. I said, bitch, I'm in jail. Bitch, like, I need you to come get me. So so then they call my name to go in the room, right? The lady just told me that the person that, my accuser said she wasn't coming. So then they call my name. They're like, I don't know if he used the word victim. I want to say he said victim. I can't remember what he says, but he said, do you fear for your life? And I couldn't see anyone else. And I was like, hold on, she didn't. Who put me here? Because she said she wasn't even coming. And her little head peek out. No. So I'm like, get me out. You better get me out of here because I ain't do shit to you. But so yeah, that was just another little funny moment, I guess, looking back on it. But so I get out, and again, my mom and dad are present at my brother's house, and again, I'm in their eyes, I can feel the "you're a failure" on their faces as they're even hugging me. I remember my mom is like, "Did you put your hands on that girl?" And I said, "No, why would I do that? Like, my aunt was in an abusive relationship. That's a sensitive topic for me. Like, I never put my hands on a woman." So I was like, that's a very sensitive topic for me. Like, I have zero tolerance for abuse or domestic abuse at all. Like, if someone told me that someone was like abusing them, like, I would probably flip out. I don't know, but I have zero tolerance for that. But as we progress forward, I'm like, man, life is just not working out for me, and I could feel myself going back into those thoughts when I was finishing up my senior year in high school and in college, where I'm like, man, again, it'll be nice not to wake up. And I dealt with, suicidal thoughts, man. I would think about death. And then I went into the suicidal ideation side of things where I'm like, man, what if I, I'm like, man, what if I go to the military? I can just die that way at war. Maybe that would seem honorable. Or what if I just go slang dope back in New Orleans? I could just get killed in the streets, make it quick. At least I'm not doing it. And I was like, or I could just take a lot of pills, or I don't want to shoot myself because I'm clumsy. I might miss. And after I made the "I'm clumsy, I might miss" comment, I said, well, the only thing that'll stop me from committing suicide is the fact that I've effed up everything else in my life. I can feel myself, like I said, getting in. I can feel myself getting in that headspace. The only reason I never tried to commit suicide was because I felt like I effed up at everything in life. I'm probably gonna f that up and be a vegetable for the rest of my life and really be miserable. Um, so that's why I've never advanced to the third step of suicide. Um, and I ended up going to meet another person later on. You know, a few years after that, I ended up meeting someone. Um, Probably shouldn't have dated at the time, and and she did. I remember I read a text message, and she told someone else that she loved them. And in my head, I'm like, oh, you just like the other girl. You're a cheater. So I just dipped. I just stopped talking. We stopped dating, and that got really messy. Um, and I started to project. I started to project my traumas. I started to project my traumas onto uh people, including someone else that was like heavily interested in me, like head over heels type interest in me. I would project my traumas that I was dealing with internally, the feelings of not being good enough, that oh, people are telling me they love me and they don't really mean it because no one's there for me. Like no one's like, and when I mean like no one's there for me, like to listen, like thoroughly listen to me, understand what I'm going through. They're just trying to, tell me what to do, what I'm not doing. And in my head, I'm like, bro, how do you even know you're not there every day? You're not living in my shoes. Like no one really met me where I was in that moment. You know what I mean? Um, and I remember one of those persons I was projecting those traumas on. They were having a conversation with someone, and I had no idea what they were talking about. I felt really dumb, and I was like, man, I need to start reading more. I feel very stupid. I started to read. I think the book I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was the first book I read since middle school or high school, something like that. So I read that book, and I began to visualize like what I want in my life, which was I didn't want to hurt anymore. I didn't want to be a bad, boyfriend or husband ever. I don't want to be broke. Um, I want to be remembered for something, and that took a really long time to really grasp, I guess, that how to do that. And I remember I was like, okay, well, what does that look like? I don't know. I know what hard work looks like. My dad was a hard worker, is a hard worker, but I don't know what being a great husband looks like. That's like a weakness or a generational curse, I guess, that we have in our family that is stopping with my generation. I don't know what that looks like from an emotional standpoint, like understanding what a woman's feeling, understanding what a woman's saying, even though she may not say it directly, but trying to decode the language of what she's saying. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be intelligent. I wanted to be um, understood. I wanted to be um, loved. I wanted the feeling of someone being proud of what I've accomplished and what I'm doing, even. Um, and I've never felt like anyone believed in me wholeheartedly. Like I would hear the words like, "Oh, you can do it. You can do this." Like, yeah, and when you're in that mental hurricane, it just sounds like, oh, you're just saying that you don't really genuinely believe it because there was a brief moment in throughout those years where I wanted to still obviously play football. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna try out for the league. I'm just gonna take my chances and just take a back door into the league. So I meet this guy through a coworker, and he starts to train me, which is pretty expensive. And I'm like, hey, mom, dad, can you all help me out financially with the trainer? And long story short, it was basically no. And then my mom's like, ask Uncle Tony. Um, so I asked them, hey, can you help me out with paying for a trainer? And I'm asking like, family members, and I don't get any assistance, and I'm paying for it out of pocket, but it's really expensive. And going back to when I was telling you about my cousin and his wife, now wife, they were getting married throughout like right before the NFL Combine that was set to be, I think it was 2012, 2013. My cousin's like, oh man, you've been, working at it all these years. You've been wanting to play in the league, and you've been praying about it. Now it's about to finally come to fruition where we about to try out. And in that moment, bro, I broke down, and I'm like, man, you have no idea how hard it is to wake up every morning and try. You have no idea how hard it is to like to bury your pain and put one foot in front of the other every day. You have no idea how hard it is to prevent yourself or stop yourself from killing yourself. Like, waking up every day, bro, was a struggle for me. It's like, oh, man, I'm up again. I gotta relive this. I have to live these moments again. Um, so I ended up having an allergic reaction. So that and walk in a walking boot. So if y'all want to talk about that, we'll talk about that later. Or just come to my live stream or something on Kick. But So fast going back to where we left off about like trying to become, what I envision myself to be. I'm like, okay, well, the NFL is over. That's dead. Let me have a funeral for it. Mourn it. Boo-hoo. It's never happening. So I'm going to school for nursing. I get my grades up. I even made summa cum laude or whatever it is. One of them words. I get my grades up. I get my AA degree. And I'm getting ready to start nursing school. And something dawns on me and say, hey, your first dream didn't work out. And my dream to play the game for a living could possibly happen. We could still do that. And so I was like, man, I don't want to take out debt to go to school for nursing. And obviously I can't ask people for money. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a chance on me, and I'm going to just work my regular job and try to, get advance in the job and level up, get promotions, and try to get promoted. And while I'm in that space, but still work towards becoming a full time content creator. And then I think a few years later, I think COVID. That's when COVID hits. And I get my first opportunity, which I'm sitting on the floor and I'm streaming from my Xbox. I may or may not still have those videos on Twitch. I don't know. Might have got deleted, but streaming from my Xbox, and I'm buying things as the government's helping, and I'm still focusing on getting out of this rut and the things that I wanted to become. All those things I mentioned earlier. I began to read books on those things. So financial literacy. I wanted to be financially smart. So I'm actually still working on my not debt free journey. So I do that. I'm reading these books. I'm reading books on how to become a better husband, how to be a good husband. God based. And I didn't break my pact with God. He got me out the rut to a degree, and I got tested again. I said, okay, I passed my test. I wanna be this. So I'm reading all these books, man, educating myself. And then I realized, man, okay, it's one thing to read the books, but it's another thing to apply these things to your life or to my life or for anyone for that matter. It's hard to apply that knowledge to yourself because you have to see yourself in that mirror And unfortunately, I was pretty much my own therapist, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's possible, but in a way, I was my own therapist. So I would find freedom of my mental state by reading these books and finding hope in them and trying to become what these books are trying to help me become, I should say. Um, so like I'm reading the books, I'm taking notes, I'm studying it, I'm trying to apply it. I didn't have a girlfriend at the time, so I'm like, okay, well, how do I apply this? So I started using these methods and teachings on my family members, um, and I noticed that they actually work. And I started, and every time nowadays, even up until this point, I'm like, man, I have to look in the mirror first before I blame anybody else about anything. I need to look in the mirror first. This is where I could have been better, no matter what the outcome could have been. It could have been someone else's fault. Um, it's how I originally probably think about it, whatever that situation could be. But what could I have done differently to have maybe generated a different outcome? So once I adopted that mentality, I would keep reading, and if I mess up, I started to always say I don't have failures. I have successes and lessons, and every lesson has been coming along the way. It's getting, everything's getting a little bit easier, a little bit easier. Like, okay, I can identify my strengths and weaknesses. Now I know how to maneuver. So it's sort of how I've been overcoming, said traumas. Um, I've been close since then. I've been able to get closer with like my parents, my sisters-in-laws, my brothers, um, and um, and going to, I guess, current state of mind is it's more so like, okay, I've done and continue to evolve in all areas of my life except for one or two, which is become a husband, a great husband, a God fearing husband that can lead his family and work together, hand in hand with his partner. And um, number two is get to that level of success that I envision, which is this channel here, and also on kick.com/ghost is where I stream daily. And my goal is to build my channel or our channel, this community, to a point where we can do this full time, and I can reach out to others that may have gone through mental trauma or may be dealing with mental trauma, or situations where they want to be better men but just don't know that starting point, don't have that starting point, and women even, um, to where we can maybe plant a seed of kindness, and hopefully that it just grows as much as the negativity that's in the world today. I think if we're able to, I really think world peace is possible, but it takes a lot of seeds. It takes consistency of planting those seeds and the reciprocation of kindness. So, for example, if you're in a fast food line and you pay for the person behind you, and then maybe they'll reciprocate it later on, and now there's a trickle down effect. Um, and a lot of times I see on social media where people will say, you know, um, they'll down each other. It's like, man, it's like, okay, if you're I don't need this type of person in my life or that type of person in my life, which is understandable. But what if we took the time to meet that person where they are and sought to help them out? Like maybe we need to hear them. Hey, this is why we can't be friends, or this is why this relationship doesn't work. This is what I need, and this is what I'm getting from you, and this is what I'm not getting from you. And then at least that person can see themselves in the mirror, and it may or may not help them, but at least we made the attempt to try to plant that seed of change to where they can become better persons and grow. And my current state of mind is I'm way more positive to nowadays. I'm actually laughing without hiding behind a smile. I'm actually laughing more, or I guess probably just as much as I always laugh. 'Cause just the difference is that I'm not hiding anything behind a smile. Um, I can sit with myself now and say, hey, you're more than a conqueror. You're the head, not the tail. You're above, not beneath. And I apply these things and these teachings that I'm learning every day. I try to do it every day. I try to elevate every day. Um, and obviously, this channel doesn't grow without the help of others. and like you all, and which is applicable to life. Like no one does life alone. No one succeeds alone. Even if you created a $1 billion company and literally it was just you, your company doesn't become $1 billion without customers. Like we literally live in a life where everyone needs everyone. And I think everyone can help make this place, meaning the world, a better place, better space. We can also practice on being a safe space and maybe meeting people where they are and then understanding where they are and vice versa, understanding where they are, um, and helping them become better in their own right or for whatever or however long our season is within their life. I think that's a positive influence that we can sow. I'm sorry, that's a positive seed that we can sow in someone's life, and then it's repeated over and over. And maybe we just maybe we save a lot of lives, and we can reach that kid or that adult or that teenager that decides, hey, I want to swallow 50 pills, or I want to shoot myself, or I want to shoot up a school. Like a lot of those people more than likely deal with internal trauma where they're not being heard, they're not being understood. Doesn't justify their actions at all. What if we can reach them and prevent them from making those mistakes, just by listening to them or understanding them and helping them, navigate their feelings. Because right now, mental fitness is at an is at a is just mental fitness is so important today, especially with COVID. COVID highlighted how important mental fitness is. Um, but unfortunately, we as humans get in our own way because we're selfish. We 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 only want to. We only we humans are selfish to the point where we only care about self. I remember one person. I remember someone I was trying to date one time, and it was like, oh man, I'm fascinated at like how much you care about people. And I think the question I asked is like, what what would you do? What would be, I think, the first 5 things you would do if you won the lottery today or tomorrow? And one of my things were, uh, I would try to help out as many families as possible to get a new start. Um, and I think one of them was also, I think I told her one of them was also to build a facility for homeless people to where they can, um, partner with social workers and have a place to sleep at night, and they can partner with social workers to get back into the workforce and hopefully change their lives. And she's like, man, I find it fascinating how you care about people so much. And she's like, well, I would be one of those type of persons where as long as my people are good, then I don't care about anything else. And I respected it. Like I understand that. Like, you know, I respect that. You want to take care of your family, and obviously I would do that too. Um, but but what 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 value would that bring if I have the means to make a change in someone's life, that can better them and contribute to maybe moving that needle of anger and frustrations and poor mental fitness to the positive side. Like what if we can change the world that way? What if we can all get along? Like there's no more war, um there's no more talking down to people or belittling of people. Like what if that's possible? You know what I mean? We won't ever know unless we all, tried. And that's what I would like to do with this channel. I mean, yeah, we'll have gaming, we'll talk about sports, we'll talk about mental fitness, relationships, all that. And again, I want to be a safe space for people to be able to come and maybe ask about like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. How do I navigate these emotions? And I'm not saying don't get therapy. Obviously, I'm not a therapist. With that being said, sometimes we aren't don't have the means to go and get therapy. Um, But if we can create a safe space where we hold each other accountable, we can help be creative uh, to create a space where we can let that person know that they're cared for, they're valued, and that we see them for the greatness that's in them, and that they're not what they think they are. They're not, you know, they're not undervalued. They're not, you know, a horrible person. They're not a failure. They're not. Uh, they're not unloved or uncared for. Like, we care for you here, and we want to do whatever we can to make sure that you thrive within your right and within your space. Um, so I appreciate everyone that took the time to watch this video. Um, I didn't want to like organize the video with talking points or nothing like that. I just wanted to kind of just be real and talk to you all about me. I tried to shorten up a lot of those stories. Hopefully I did a good job at that and didn't bore you all. But I appreciate you all for taking the time out to listen to the video, watch the video, and I hope that we all can, you know, proverbially lock arms and change lives starting today. I look forward to seeing you all in the next video, man. Be sure you tell somebody you love them, and be sure you give someone a hug, because you never know what that person or the next person is going through. Us humans, we're just walking dumpster trucks, man. I mean dumpsters. We're taking so much trash every day, bro. We're taking trash every day, and sometimes a joking person like myself can come along and just throw a measly Coke can onto your dumpster, and then now you spew out your anger, your traumas, all of that is just spewed out onto that person, and then that person could be making a mistake that can, you know, net them in jail for the rest of their lives, or cost them their lives, or ruin another person's life, or and we don't, you know, I want to hopefully bring an end to that, and if not, put a big dent into it and be a positive change for everybody. So I hope you enjoyed the video, man, and I hope I did a good job at least highlighting, you know, who I am as a person, the traumas I've been through, and still work every day to evolve and overcome and deal with. I hope that this resonates with you all, and I hope that we're able to grow the channel to where we can do this full time and be able to make an impact on people's lives, positive impact on people's lives is what I should say. Hopefully we can make a positive impact on people's lives and be able to, you know, make a world change happen. And, you know, like I said, make sure you tell somebody you love them, give them a hug, do a good deed, and try to find ways to be grateful. With a minimum of three things, with a minimum of three things, let me know what you're grateful for today. It could be more, but at least three. Let me know what you're grateful for today. And I hope to see you guys in the next video.